The sound came at night, when the snow was still falling. Not loud, not sudden, just wrong. A single knock. It echoed from somewhere inside the house, deep within the walls, as if the wood itself had decided to speak. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, counting my breaths. The heater had shut off hours ago. The cold pressed down like a weight. Another knock. Slow. Patient. I told myself it was the pipes. Old houses made noises in winter. Everyone knew that. Still, my hand crept toward the lamp beside my bed, fingers trembling before I realized they were shaking. The third knock came closer. From the hallway. I held my breath. Listened. Silence swallowed everything again. Thick, suffocating silence. The kind that makes you aware of your own heartbeat, your own thoughts turning against you. Then a whisper slid under the door. You came back. My name wasn't spoken. It didn't need to be. The voice knew me anyway. I didn't sleep after that. I sat upright until dawn, watching the thin line of light creep under the door, waiting for something. Anything to prove I hadn't imagined it. When morning came, the snow had buried the path to the hill, and the house stood alone, watching. I returned to the house on the hill because winter gives you no room to run. The road leading up had narrowed since I last saw it, swallowed by snow and memory. Trees leaned inward, their bare branches scraping the sky like ribs. The headlights cut a weak tunnel through the white, and beyond that, nothing existed. No town, no past, no future, just the climb. When the house appeared, it did so without warning. One moment there was only snow and darkness. The next, the shape of it loomed above the hill, black against a bruised gray sky. It looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was remembering it wrong on purpose. I killed the engine and listened. Wind hissed across the hilltop. Snow ticked softly against the hood. The house stood silent, its windows dark, blind, watching. I told myself it was just a building. Wood, nails, stone. Empty. That lie followed me as I stepped inside. The door groaned like it resented being opened. Cold rushed out, sharp and stale, carrying the smell of old dust and something deeper. Damp wood, long winters, forgotten breath. My boots echoed too loudly on the floorboards, each step announcing my presence like an apology. Just a few weeks, I muttered. The words sounded thin in the open space. The furniture was covered in sheets. Ghost-like shapes slumped in the dim light. I peeled one back from the couch. Dust rose in a slow cloud, hanging in the air as if reluctant to settle. The house felt hollowed out, like something had been removed but left its imprint behind. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was attentive. I moved room to room, forcing myself to touch things. Walls, door frames, the banister. Anchoring myself in the physical. The house felt colder than it should have, even for winter. My breath fogged faintly. In the living room, a chair sat pulled slightly away from the wall. Just a few inches. I frowned. I was sure my parents always kept it flush, aligned with the others. They were particular about small things. Order mattered to them. It had mattered too much. I pushed the chair back where it belonged. The wood scraped softly. The sound lingered longer than it should have. Upstairs, the staircase creaked beneath my weight, each step complaining as though unused to being walked on. Shadows clung to the corners, stretching unnaturally as dusk bled into night. My old bedroom waited at the end of the hall. The door was ajar. I stood there longer than necessary, heart tapping out a cautious rhythm. I remembered closing that door every night as a child. Not out of fear, at least that's what I used to tell myself, but habit. I nudged it open. The bed was made. The blanket lay smooth and tight, corners tucked with care. No dust disturbed the surface. The pillow rested neatly at the head, indented just slightly, as if someone had tested it and decided it was acceptable. That shouldn't have been possible. I scanned the room. The dresser was coated in dust. The windowsill untouched. No footprints on the floor. No sign of another person. Just the bed. A memory surfaced uninvited. My mother's voice, low and urgent, whispered in the dark. Don't let it know you're afraid. I stepped back, pulse quickening. "This is stupid," I said aloud, the sound of my own voice grounding and false at the same time. I left the room and shut the door harder than necessary. The heater took 3 tries before it kicked on, coughing and rattling like an old animal disturbed from sleep. Warm air crept slowly through the vents, never quite reaching my bones. Night fell quickly after that, pressing against the windows, flattening the world into black glass. I sat in the living room with a single lamp on, the rest of the house swallowed by shadow. That's when the knock came. Not from the door. Not from outside. From somewhere inside the walls. It was soft. Almost polite. I froze. Listening. The second knock followed, slower, closer. "Hello." The word slipped out before I could stop it. Silence answered. Then, faint but unmistakable, something shifted in the hallway. A footstep. A weight settling where nothing should have been. My throat tightened. I stood, the lamp shaking slightly in my hand. "Who's there?" The house breathed. A voice drifted from the darkness, dry and amused. Too close to my own thoughts. "You shouldn't have come back." The lamp flickered. I backed toward the stairs, heart pounding hard enough to hurt. The voice didn't repeat itself. It didn't need to. The message hung heavy in the air, sinking into the walls, into me. I locked my bedroom door that night. As I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, snow began to fall harder outside. Thick, heavy flakes sealing the house off from the rest of the world. Somewhere beyond the door, the floorboards creaked. Slow. Deliberate. Like something learning how to walk again. By the 4th day, I stopped pretending the house was empty. It was the small things that broke me first. Not the sounds, those could be blamed on age, on winter, on my own nerves stretched thin. It was the way objects refused to stay where I left them. The way the house corrected me. Every morning, the chair in the living room sat inches from the wall again. Always the same distance. Always angled slightly outward, like it was being offered. I tried marking the floor with a pencil line. By nightfall, the mark was gone. Snow kept falling. The road disappeared completely, erased as if it had never existed. My phone showed no signal. The landline rang once and then went dead, the dial tone replaced by a low hum that made my teeth ache. The house had decided. I was staying. I ventured into town on foot, the cold biting through my coat. People noticed me immediately. Conversations slowed, then stopped. Eyes followed, then turned away. At the general store, an elderly woman watched me from behind the counter. Her face tightened when she recognized me. "You're their kid," she said quietly. I nodded. She glanced toward the hill, barely visible through the gray sky. "You should have sold it without stepping inside." I needed time. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "That's what it needs too." I frowned. "Needs what?" She hesitated, then leaned closer. Her breath smelled of mint and fear. Someone who remembers. I left with my supplies half paid, her words sticking to me like frost. That night, the voices started using names. Not mine at first. My parents. Neighbors. Names I hadn't heard since childhood. They whispered them lovingly, reverently, as if reading from a guest list. I found the attic door open. I was certain I'd locked it. The ladder hung down, swaying slightly, though the air was still. Cold leaked from above, sharper than anywhere else in the house. It smelled old, closed in, expectant. I didn't climb it that night. Instead, I searched the study. Dust-coated shelves sagged under the weight of forgotten books. Behind them, tucked into the wall, I found a loose panel. Inside, a journal. My mother's. At first, the entries were ordinary. Complaints about winter. Notes about repairs. Mentions of town gossip. Then the tone shifted. It listens when it's quiet. It doesn't like to be ignored. The cold makes it stronger. I read until my eyes burned, until my hands shook too badly to hold the pages steady. Memories surfaced unbidden. My parents whispering late at night, their faces drawn and pale. Candles lit even when the electricity worked. Doors kept shut. Rules enforced without explanation. Never answer the knocking. Never open the attic. Never leave during snowfall. A knock echoed through the house. My heart slammed into my ribs. It came again. 3 slow raps. Not on a door. Not on a wall. On the ceiling. Directly above me. I didn't look up. You always liked stories, a voice murmured. It was my mother's voice. Perfect. Warm. Wrong. Tears welled before I could stop them. You're dead, I whispered. The voice sighed. So are you if you stay afraid. Something shifted above me, a slow drag like weight being pulled across wood. I ran. Sleep abandoned me after that. When I closed my eyes, the house rearranged itself. Hallways stretched too long. Doors led to rooms that didn't exist. Faces stared back from mirrors, familiar but empty. On the 7th night, someone knocked on the front door. I hadn't heard footsteps. The snow outside lay smooth and untouched. I approached the door slowly, every instinct screaming. Through the frosted glass, I saw a shape. Tall, motionless. Who is it? My voice cracked. A pause. Then, softly. I'm lost. I backed away, shaking my head. Go away. The voice changed. Deepened. You already did. The knock came again, harder this time. The door rattled in its frame. I screamed for it to stop. It laughed. The next morning, I found footprints circling the house. Not human. Too many joints. Too deliberate. They stopped beneath my bedroom window. In the attic, the air felt heavier, as though packed with unseen bodies. I climbed the ladder despite myself, each rung creaking in protest. The attic was larger than it should have been. Boxes lined the walls, all unlabeled. In the center sat a single chair, the same one from the living room. Facing me. You fed it, I whispered, the truth settling like ice in my chest. You fed it fear. A whisper brushed past my ear. We fed it love. The house shifted again, pleased. And I understood then, it wasn't haunting us. It was raising us. The storm hit without warning. Snow fell like ashes from a gray sky, piling thick and fast, swallowing the road. The world outside the house disappeared. One moment there were trees, the next there was nothing but white. The car was useless, trapped beneath a frozen drift, and I realized with sinking certainty that escape was no longer an option. Inside, the house was awake. The knocking never stopped. Not a rhythm anymore. A chaotic, insistent percussion. Walls groaned, floorboards moaned. Every room seemed to stretch, every corner whispered. Shadows lengthened unnaturally, pooling into shapes that waited. The lamp in the living room flickered in sympathy with my heartbeat. I ran through the house, checking doors, pressing my ear to walls, trying to remind myself that this was wood, this was paint, this was stone. But it wasn't. It had never been just a house. Stop it. I screamed into the dark hallway, voice echoing, broken. Leave me alone. Silence answered first. Then a slow, deliberate drag across the floor above me. The attic door creaked open, revealing nothing. Not empty, never empty, but a weight pressing, almost visible in the gloom. I stepped back. My mind screamed, leave. Run. But where? The air thickened. I couldn't move. Time slowed. Hallways stretched beyond logic. Doors led to rooms that shouldn't exist. Mirrors reflected me, but not me. Something with my face, my expression, mocking my fear. And then it spoke. You were never meant to leave. The voice was my father's. Then my mother's. Then my own. Layered, warped, intimate. Each syllable pried at my bones. Memories tore through me. Nights of whispered rules, of locked doors, of candles lit against power. My parents hadn't protected me. They had been feeding it, teaching me, preparing me. It moved toward me. Slow, inevitable. I could feel the house bend, walls breathing, ceiling sagging toward me. The chair from the living room, the one in the attic, appeared beside me, facing me. The floor beneath it groaned as if acknowledging some dark ritual. I'm not afraid. I shouted, though my voice trembled. It laughed. Or maybe I did. It didn't matter. You always were the brave one, it said. My mother's voice. But bravery is irrelevant. Only presence matters. Cold leapt into my chest. My bones shook. Every exit collapsed. Time fractured. Steps I took led me back to the same hallway, over and over, the walls curling inward. The entity wore my face now. Smiled with my teeth. Spoke with my voice. You belong. I stumbled, fell, and it was above me in an instant. Or was it always there? I couldn't tell anymore. Screaming meant nothing. The house swallowed sound as if it had never existed. I clawed at the floorboards, at the walls, trying to anchor myself to reality. It whispered my memories back at me, distorted. Remember winter. Remember the attic. Remember your fear. Remember us. I screamed again, louder, hopeless. The attic door slammed shut behind me. My bedroom door locked itself from the outside. The hallways twisted. Mirrors multiplied. Shadows pressed closer. Every step I imagined for escape vanished. I realized then, the house did not want to harm me. Not in a simple sense. It wanted to claim me, reshape me, rewrite me. I was not a visitor. I was the final piece. I cried, whispered, begged. My own voice returned fragments of threats. You can't stop me. You can't leave. The entity said simply, matter of fact, as if stating the weather. It leaned closer. The temperature dropped to nothing. I felt it inside my bones. The chair settled behind me. My reflection grinned at me. And then the last thought came, cold and absolute. It had won. The last thing I heard as darkness pressed, walls curved, and time bent around me, was my own voice, drawn from somewhere deep inside, or somewhere else entirely, whispering, now you know. The world ended. Or at least my world did. I was part of the house now, as it had always been. Waiting. Watching. Learning from the next visitor. The snow continued to fall outside, sealing the hill in silence. The house exhaled. And the storm raged on, relentless, patient. Winter ended, or so the calendar said. The snow melted from the hill, revealing bare, dead grass and frozen patches of mud. But the house remained, dark and unyielding, standing crooked against the sky. Its windows reflected the sun, pale and lifeless, giving nothing away. No one saw me leave. No one even knew I had been inside, except the house itself. The town whispered about the hill in half-remembered tones. People drove past quickly, murmuring of shadows moving behind curtains, lights flickering in the night, and the faint sound of someone walking when the house should have been empty. I walked the roads below, the wind cold on my face, yet not as cold as the emptiness that followed me. My reflection in shop windows startled me. Sometimes it moved slightly slower than I did, or lingered when I stepped away. My own eyes stared back, but not entirely mine. At night, the memory of the house crept into everything. Doors I left locked in my apartment clicked open by themselves. Shadows pooled in corners, silent, patient. Sometimes, when I slept, I dreamed of snow piling against my old bedroom window, knocking softly, waiting. The people who survived winter after winter on the hill seemed hollow. They spoke rarely, glanced upward as though expecting the house to watch them even from afar. Those who stayed too long in town swore they heard whispers in the wind. Familiar names, familiar voices, though no one knew whose they were. I tried to rebuild some sense of life. I tried routines, friendships, work. But everything carried the weight of inevitability. The house had claimed something permanent. Something I could no longer name, but I felt it in every breath. And sometimes, when the sun set and the wind began to stir, I would hear it. A soft knock. Slow. Deliberate. A voice, impossibly familiar. You came back. I do not answer. I never answer. The house waits, patient as winter, waiting for the next soul to walk its path, to leave the warmth of life and step onto the hill. Waiting because it always will. And the snow always comes back.